So he just recorded and posted. Recording and posting is a second step. So the question is basically asking you, what is the third step? So the third step is the preparation of unadjusted trial balance, correct? So again, Rodiger has just recorded and posted his business transactions. Again, this step is the second step. And the question, therefore, is looking for the third step. And the third step is the preparation of the unadjusted trial balance, right? Everybody in agreement? Are some answering B? So, tapos ka na sa analyzing the transactions, right? Kasi nag-record ka na ng transaction eh. So, analyzing transactions is the first step. You have already done that because you would not be recording the transaction unless you have already done your analysis, right? Even the collection of all receipts and invoices, that's already done, presumed done. The income statement, not yet. You cannot prepare income statement just yet because you will do your adjustments pa, right? If there is any. So everybody answers letter A. And let's check that. Correct. Preparing an unadjusted trial balance is the third step of the accounting cycle, which follows recording and posting transactions. Next, number 7, reorganizing journal entries and grouping them by account is known as A, file maintenance, B, balancing the journal, or C, posting to the ledger. So reorganizing journal entries and grouping them by account is known as, right? It cannot be file maintenance because wala namang step na ganon. It also should not be balancing the journal kasi wala namang ganon. So it could only be posting to the ledger, right? Recording and posting, right? So let's hit that submit button and we are correct. Reorganizing all the journal entries and grouping them by account is called posting to the ledger. Next, question number 8, which of the following list general ledger account balances at the end of a reporting period before any adjusting entries are made? So which of the following list general ledger account balances at the end of a reporting period before any adjusting entries are made? So we know adjusting entries is the fourth step. Therefore, the question is asking for the third step or the immediately preceding step. Is it the balance sheet? Is it the unadjusted trial balance? Is it the statement of equity? Or is it the adjusted balance? So the answer is the unadjusted trial balance. Let's hit that submit button. And there we are correct. The unadjusted trial balance lists the general ledger account balances at the end of a reporting period before any adjusting entries are made to the balances to create financial statements. It is used as the starting point for analyzing account balances and making adjusting entries. All right, next, second to the last question. The preparation of financial statements and closing the books is the blank step of the accounting cycle. So the preparation of financial statements and closing the books is the step of the accounting cycle. So is it the third? Is it the last? Is it the second? Is it the fourth? It is the last, right? The last or the sixth and final step of the accounting cycle. And let us hit that submit button. And I know we were right. I just hit it. I just hit my mouse fairly quick. All right, last question. You have just completed the adjusting entries for your client. Your next step is to prepare. So adjusting entries, again, is the fourth step. So the question, therefore, is asking for the fifth step, right? Or the fifth step. So that answer is the adjusted trial balance. It cannot be cash flow statement kasi wala namang. Cash flow statement is the preparation of financial statements, which is the final step. The unadjusted trial balance is the third step, which is before the adjusting entries. So the answer could only be adjusted trial balance. And let's hit that submit button. And we are correct. An adjusted trial balance is a listing of the ending balances in all accounts after adjusting entries have been prepared. Right. So did we hit perfect? All right, we were all right. 100%. Thank you, guys. Good job. Now let's continue. 808. Conclusion, right? Do you guys like that word, conclusion? Right? Congratulations. You're one step closer to being a bookkeeper. Amazing. Understanding the accounting cycle and its principles gives you the skills and process to confidently handle financial tasks as a bookkeeper. With this knowledge, you'll be ready to apply what you've learned and elevate your skills to the next level. To receive completion credit for this module, please select submit, and let's do that. So yeah, we have completed this module. Let's give each other a big round of applause. What a milestone, right? And perfect natin yung exam today. Isn't it amazing? All right, so let's just check the outline. Where are we right now in terms of content? So we've managed to complete the first 4. Then we are headed to the step 1, the collection and analysis of the transactions. This is probably the application now. So this is the how, right? So we have just covered the whys. Now we're gonna do the how. So we're moving on to the emphasis on the first step of the accounting cycle, again, the collection and the analysis of financial transactions. We may need our exercise here. Where is that? There, our working file. So step 1, collect and analyze transactions. Let's start that module. Who wants to read the overview? Any volunteer? Para wag kayong antukin. Right, Marivic, go ahead.
Good evening.
Evening, Bob.
Okay. Let's talk about the first step in the accounting cycle. Collect and analyze transactions. Recording financial events in a transaction journal is how you keep your books organized. Once you know how to do this, you'll see the impact as on the rest of the cycle, specifically the chart of accounts and the general ledger.
All right, so that's the cycle, right? It looks like a wheel. Right, and the glossary, let's skip that. You can always come back to it. Right, so transaction journal. How do I use a transaction journal? You want to read this part? A
Okay.
volunteer? Oh, go ahead.
Me again,
Go
sir.
ahead.
Transactional journal overview. A transaction journal or a journal is used to list the details of an individual event, like an expense or revenue transaction. Listing a transaction in the journal makes it easier to see than searching through the general ledger. What types of events get recorded? Transactions that are recorded in a transaction journal include events such as purchase expenses and customer payments. It can also include entries for depreciation of assets like business vehicles. The following list shows examples of the different types of events that should be recorded in a transaction journal. Sales transactions. Revenue for a business from the sale of goods and services. Cash receipts. Cash, check, and credit card sales and customer payments. Credit purchases. Items both for the business items that involve a credit to accounts payable or a credit card account. Cash disbursements. Payments made via cash and checks by the business. Other general journal entries for other financial activities that occur within the business, like depreciation, interest income, and interest.
All
That's
right.
all, sir.
Thank you. Rowena, right?
Sir.
Was it Rowena?
Marivic, sir.
Amari Vic pala. I'm sorry. All right. So let's just put some emphasis on the journals, right? So let's say this one is a sales journal. And then let's use our best friend Perplexity to what are the usual column headers for a sales journal? So additional columns include in a sales journal depends on the needs of the business, cost of goods sold, or sales tax payable. So let's just do this. So do you have the date, you have account debited, or the customer account, you have invoice number, posting reference, the amount. So a sales journal typically looks like this, right? So you can buy a sales journal from like a bookstore, and they have pre-filled, or yung iba, ikaw na yung maglalagay ng account heading sa column, right? So date, account debited, and then you have invoice number. Okay. Oh, hold on. What's wrong with me? Oh, just bear with me, okay? Voice number, and what else? Posting reference. And then you have your amount. Right. So this is how a sales journal is set up, right? So you have a date, then you have your account debited. According to Perplexity, the account debited is the customer account, or records the name or title of the customer whose account is debited. And then invoice number, the posting reference. Posting reference is the records the reference of or account number used when posting entries to subsidiary or general ledger accounts. Okay, so what you have here is a sales journal. By the name sales journal, all that you record in this journal are sales, right? So everything that you record here are all sales. This is a sales journal. You cannot record the cash disbursement here. You cannot record cash receipts. All that you record here, this is on a manual setting, okay? A manual setup, right? So you have like, again, if you recall, if in your accounting days or if you're a practitioner, this is one of those the BIR requires, right? If you open a business, meron silang nire-require na isa-stamp yan nila. I don't know if that still is true nowadays, but they will stamp that journal, so the sales journal. And you will fill that columns with these, right? And you can add more as you like. But what you record here is like, for example, January 3, 25. Account debited is the account ng client, right? So account debited is records the name or the title of the customer whose account is debited. So this could be your customer, right? So account ni Kelly Joan Cano, right? That could be the account, right? The invoice number could be, let's say, 1001. And posting reference, this would be accounts receivable, right? Because posting reference, as you can see here, this is the records the reference or account number used when posting entries to subsidiary or general ledger accounts. So let's use that. And then the amount of the sales, right? So let's say sales of 1,000. Let's put that this one. So all sales will be recorded here, right? All sales. So that, or yeah, all sales, because according here, you have cash receipts. Cash receipts would be payments from the client. So let's separate cash payments or cash sales. No, wait. Maybe you guys can help me with this. So if in a sales journal, do you also record a sales a transaction or a sales transaction in cash?
Sales.
Who's using sales journal, by the way? Do you still guys use sales journal, or lahat dito automated na? Meron ba ditong gumagamit ng sales journal at all? Yung mga nagbo-bookkeeping sa Philippine setting. Do you guys use sales journal?
For BIR purposes lang, Chris. Pero yung internal is Excel, yung manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Kaya ako din naglilito ako. Like for example, kasi itong sales transaction natin was AR. Now I have this conundrum where what if cash transaction, do we also record that in sales journal? Because it's a sales journal after all. So I think we should, right? So sales invoice. Right. So let's say for example, on that same day, merong sales. Na cash. So do you put the account? You don't need, right? Because this is, you don't need to have an account debited because this is not an AR sales. So you can do, say, cash sales. Then this is NA because there's not going to be an invoice, correct? Correct?
Yes po.
Hold on. Let's just do it this way. So that's an NA because there will not be an invoice number, right? Posting reference would be cash, right? And let's say 1,000. So the point of the sales journal, okay, before I proceed, Marlita is raising her hand. Marlita, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. That's what we teach in school. We have a column for cash sales, also under the sales journal. So in the cash receipts journal, the cash is debited, but our sales in the sales journal is what is being posted in the account for sales, so that the student will not be confused as to what is the correct figure for sales, what is the correct figure for cash. Yan po.
Gotcha. So let's say, for example, let's recreate this. Let's duplicate this, and let's say this is the sales receipts journal or cash receipts journal. By the way, Merlita is teaching in the academe. Is that right?
Yes po. I used to teach in college for accounting 1.
Oh, wow. I love teachers. So let's say, what are the usual column headers for a cash receipts journal? Is it the same thing? Date, account credited, posting reference, cash, or the amount, sales discount, sales, accounts receivable. Yeah. So I think what happens here is that if this is your sales journal, this is the posting reference, right? So the posting reference would be like a code that you will also record in the cash journal, because this involves cash. Therefore, let's say you have this reference code, I don't know, maybe say cash journal, cash receipts journal code 1001. 1,000. So that in your cash receipts journal, let's say this is cash receipts journal, you can match it, right? You can match that cash sales against the posting reference number. This is posting reference naman nito is cash receipts journal 1001, right? So that traces this transaction against this transaction, right? You get what I'm saying? And then at the end of the month, let's say dalawang transaction lang for the month of January. So you have your total. It's easy to say you have a sales of this much. Kasi naka-columnar lang yung journal entry mo. Kasi separate lahat ng transaction in that journal are all sales. Right? So at the end of the month when you do footing, whatever the total is, that's your total sales for the month. You get what I'm saying? So it's separate journal, separate yung cash, separate yung sales, separate yung cash disbursements, cash receipts. So ito naman, cash receipts, pag tinotal mo yan, lahat ng cash receipts mo for the month, that's your total, right? And then you have cash disbursement or cash disbursements. Lahat naman nakalista naman lahat ng mga binayaran mo in cash, right? So when you match how much is your total, you just go total your cash receipts, and then you go to your cash disbursements journal, you total that, so you match them, you have your net cash for the month, right? So all these four are called your special journals, right? If you recall your accounting lesson, these are your special journal, and this is your general journal, right? And in the context of QuickBooks Online, we'll relate that in the context of the automated version of the accounting software. Meron ding ganyan, right? So that all your sales are recorded, all your cash receipts are also recorded, all your accounts payable are also recorded separately, right? So I'll show you that. And you have to be very solid about this because this is the quirkiness of QBO. Other software does it differently. Again, this is the quirkiness, meaning it's unique to QBO, right? So in QBO, if you want to record invoices or sales, you always would want to go here, new, and then click invoice. This is going to be your sales journal, right? This is going to be your sales journal. Anything that you will record with an invoice, that means it's always going to be a debit to accounts receivable every time you do this, right? Now, what happens if there is cash sales? Cash sales naman is here, sales receipt. You get me? So invoice, if this is sales on account, sales receipt is sales on cash, right? And then pagdating naman sa expense, if you paid in cash, that's an expense. If you created a bill, that means accounts payable. This is here, bill, right? So again, invoice would be sales on account. Every time you create an invoice, you're creating a sales, and at the same time, you are creating an accounts receivable. However, if the sales is in cash, you record that under sales receipt. Pag expense na binayaran in cash, it will be expense. If you received a bill that will be paid at a later time, you'll record that as a bill. Wag ma-confuse, ha? So that's basically the equivalent of these here. Because remember, in automated accounting software, you no longer do journal entries, right? We covered that yesterday. Automated, you don't do journal entries anymore in an accounting software, except for special entries like depreciation, recognition of interest, right? So those are not non-usual transactions, non-regular transactions. And that's what you use the journal entries for. And if you notice, QBO has put that somewhere to the far right, right? Journal entry here. It's included in others because it's only for very, very special situation, right? So if you have an invoice, of course, you will receive the payment, right? And if you have, you will have adjustments. All these things we will not cover in detail, but the most important things here are invoice, receiving payment, and then sales receipt, right? The rest would be so advanced, I would not cover it with you. And we also don't use, we don't typically use that in practice. Vendor naman, expense, bill, and pay bills. These are the usual transactions that we use. Syempre, kung may bill ka, babayaran mo yan. That's pay bills, right? So that's the opposite of here. If you have an invoice, you will receive payment from that invoice or for that invoice. You get what I'm saying? And I'll show you the example of that, right? So now you create an invoice. I've already shown you how to create the invoice, right? But we'll do it for this exercise. We'll create an invoice because we're gonna be receiving payment for this invoice, okay? So for example, in this case, we're gonna create an invoice for Amy's Bird Sanctuary, and let us say the invoice is due on, not really receipt, but let's say net 10, right? And you're behind in creating invoice. This invoice should have been created on the 1st of September, right? Again, you can always make changes on the date, right, to reflect the actual date that the transaction occurred. And then you select the product or service. So let's just use this for example, and then let's just create a big amount here. Let's say 1,000 or 10,000. Right? So remember, this is an invoice to Amy's Bird Sanctuary. And then we will later on get the invoice number, right? Because that's the reference number that we will get. And then you review this, and then you will send this to the customer. So invoice 1038, remember that invoice number, 1038. And then my sales tax na 800. So 10,800 yan lahat. So there you created the invoice, right? And again, because an invoice creates an accounts receivable, right? The underlying entry in the QuickBooks backend is a debit to accounts receivable and a credit to sales. You've already seen that, right? If you have not, I will show it again. So if we go to sales tab and then we click on invoices, let's retrieve that invoice. Let's sort this out by date. Right? So this is that invoice, right? The date was September 1st, invoice number 1038. And if you click edit invoice, you will see the underlying transaction for this invoice, right? So if you click on more actions, transaction journal, all right, let's wait for it to load. Medyo mabagal siya. Right, so this was the underlying journal entry. You did not have to do this because QuickBooks did it for you. There was a debit of accounts receivable 10,800 and a credit to sales account of design income 10,000 and payable of tax payable of 800, right? So that's your journal. You record that under sales journal. This is your sales journal basically, right? Now, because you have an invoice, then anong kasunod ng invoice? Magbabayad si customer, right? So when magbayad na si customer, you can do receive payment, right? So you receive the payment, say for example, date today is September 4. Si Amy Sanctuary is magbabayad na, right? So now you select that client, Amy's Bird Sanctuary, and the beauty with QuickBooks is that it would automatically display all the open invoices for that customer, right? So here we can say that, or we can tell that Amy's Bird Sanctuary has 2 open invoices from us, right? One was invoice 102 created on July 18, due on August 17. This is overdue, right? The original amount that was invoiced was 459. The open balance is 239. That means my partial payment na nangyari. You get what I mean? There was a partial payment that was made. If you want to know what that partial payment is, if you want to get the details, you can click on the invoice number. I will not do that right now. I'll do it later. But we'll tackle this invoice number 1038, the one that we just created, right? And we can say, for this example, nagbayad ng buong amount si Amy. So sabi niya, okay, bookkeeper, I'm gonna pay you 10,800. Please apply this to the most current invoice, right? Yun yung instruction ng customer. So what you can do is you enter your payment here, 10,800. Right? 10,800. And you just save and close. Right. So you receive that payment. And then you want to know how that got recorded, right? So now if you go to receive payment, and then you open up the same customer, Amy's Bird Sanctuary, you will no longer see that invoice because it's already closed. It's fully paid. You get what I'm saying? It's no longer there because it's fully paid. Right? But if you want to see all the invoices for this client, what you can do is you go here under customers, and then you look for Amy's Bird Sanctuary, right? So you go open Amy's Bird Sanctuary, and you will see here all the transactions with this client, right? So you can see that on September 1st, an invoice was created, right? Amy's Bird Sanctuary, and that invoice is already paid. So this was the payment, right? And if we view that payment, right? If we click on this invoice right now, we can see that, or we can see or we can check the transaction journal. Just wait for it to load. See. No, this is not the payment journal. This is the transaction journal, right? It's giving us. We already paid this. Give me 1 second. So let's go back. One quirkiness of QuickBooks, because it's online, sometimes the back button does not work as intended, right? And it's kind of annoying. See, I hit back, but I'm stuck at where I was earlier before I hit back. So I would have to go back here again. Sales. I go to customers. I just needed to show you the transaction that was recorded upon payment, right? All right, let's see if we can get it from here. View activity. So transaction details, more actions. Let's see, date. All right, this was the receiving of payment, the transaction journal. Right. So when we received the payment earlier, there was an underlying transaction journal that was recorded in QuickBooks, which was a debit to the account undeposited funds and a credit to accounts receivable 10,800. Again, you did not have to do the journal entry because all you had to do was to go to the new button, click on receive payment, and then you would just made sure that you're receiving the payment to the right correct invoice or to the right invoice number. And you didn't have to do this, right? I just showed you the underlying transaction. And also, as early as now, I'm gonna tell you that be very careful with this account, undeposited funds. Be very, very careful with this because a lot of errors in books is arising from undeposited funds, right? And remind me to show you why. But for now, I would like you to be very, very mindful of this transaction, especially when you start cleaning up books and you look at the balance sheet account, or you look at the balance sheet and you see undeposited funds and it's not moving. Like every month you have the same balance of undeposited funds. Maloka ka na. Something is wrong, right? So again, it's too early for me to tell you why, but I'm gonna give you already a heads up that a lot of errors are gonna come from this account, okay? We'll receive another invoice. For example, let's receive the final payment for that account from Amy's Bird Sanctuary. See this one, 239, right? And if you say you receive full payment here, be very, very careful before you click save and close. Don't do it just yet, okay? Don't do it just yet. Look at the columns here or the fields. So you have the customer, but look at the payment date. The payment date, you have to set it up according to when the payment was received, right? Because sometimes it's default onto the last date that you chose. Because earlier when we created the invoice, we selected September 1st, right? But be careful because the date today is September 4. What if you you received the payment for this invoice September 4, but you did not mind the date, right? It's gonna cause a mess when you do bank reconciliation later because the date would not match. It's not a big deal, but it may cause confusion later on when the bank reconciliation is done, right? So again, as a bookkeeper, we have to be very, very thorough, right? So if the payment date is today, change it to today's date. If the payment date was last month, change it to last month's date. You get what I'm saying? And then finally, you look at this account, deposit to. See, this is defaulted to undeposited funds. Again, a lot of times, QuickBooks will have this account deposited to undeposited funds. And mind you guys, you can change this. You can change this to a checking account. You can change this to the savings account. Because there are instances where the payment is made via online transfer or made to the bank, right? So if that happens, you may want to go directly and put that as a deposit to bank, right? It's gonna matter because the journal entry will follow whatever you put here. If you say undeposited funds and you click save and close, the journal entry at the back end will be a debit to undeposited funds and a credit to the accounts receivable account. You get what I'm saying? Are you able to follow? Right? So again, be very careful. If the payment was made directly into the checking or the savings account, select the account right away. But if you put undeposited funds, I'm not going to hit this transaction now, or I can actually do that. Let's just say we change this to checkings, just so I can prove my point to you guys, right? So again, we're making full payment for this invoice. As you can see, the original invoice amount was 459. The open balance is 239. So we're making full payment. So this should be zero now. So we save and close. And if you go back to your customer information, go back to customer, open Amy's Bird Sanctuary. So her account would have zero balance, right? So see summary, open balance zero. There's no overdue payment because she's fully paid her account. You get what I'm saying? And then we have here the 239 payment. If we click on this icon here, view activity, and then we edit it. And this is also the beauty of QuickBooks. If you made a mistake and you realize a mistake, you can always correct yourself, right? So you can always go back here and then select the right account and then save and close, right? But that's not my point right now. I'm going to show you how this transaction is recorded. So you view the transaction journal. Earlier, we saw that it was deposited, or the debit account was undeposited funds. But this time around, we specified that it's going to be in a deposit to a checking account. Let's see what happens in the journal entry. So see, your journal entry is a debit to the checking account, 239, and a credit to accounts receivable, 239. Right? So again, be very, very mindful when you're receiving payment, because this is one of the many errors that bookkeepers make in QuickBooks Online. Because this is the quirkiness, this is unique to QuickBooks. This is not how Xero does it, right? This is not how Wave does it. They have different approaches. They have different approach to, say, invoicing, to receiving payment. But the bottom line there, the journal entry, the bookkeeping is still the same. The back end is the same. It's just the how that's the different. You get what I'm saying? It's like different ways to kill a dog, right? It's just like that. But the bottom line, you're killing the dog. So this is QuickBooks way of doing it. And mind you guys, it's very confusing to some who don't have an understanding of the journal entries, right? And you're just operating like QuickBooks because it's menu driven. You think that you're doing well because everything gets posted. And then this is where the mess is created, right? Imagine you are someone with no training in bookkeeping, no understanding of these things, and you were asked to operate a books account using QuickBooks, right? So you say, okay, I'm going to create an invoice. I go here, and then I will receive a payment. I'll go here, but you were so careless. You didn't specify the date. You didn't specify the account. You just went in with your life, not knowing that you are already making a mistake, right? Because anyway, na-save mo naman yung account, na-save mo naman yung transaction, everything is okay. And that is where mistakes happen, right? I'm going to show you later how we can discover those mistakes. I showed you yesterday how I made or how I discovered my own mistake, right? Remember the example on accumulated depreciation? When I look at the balance sheet, I knew that I made a mistake, right? I knew that I made a mistake because I was not seeing accumulated depreciation on the balance sheet, right? And then when I look at my P&L, there I saw the accumulated depreciation. So I realized that my mistake was defining my chart of accounts, right? And it could happen in QuickBooks too. You could be navigating QuickBooks. You could be saving invoice, receiving payments, not knowing that you were making a mistake. And then when you look at the balance sheet and the P&L, because again, you don't have training, you don't have appreciation of what a chart of account is, what composes a chart of accounts, how you define a chart of account, whether it's an expense, liability, asset, you cannot read a financial statement, basically, right? Because you know the how, you don't know the why. When you look at the balance sheet, you don't realize you're making a mistake. Like you have made a mistake because if you break down your balance sheet month on month, your undeposited funds are not changing. And you say, oh, okay lang naman yan, balance sheet, undeposited funds, whatever. You're not seeing things the way an accountant should see things, right? And so you go on with your life. You provide your report to your client. The client does not know books, so tingin niya, it sounds okay, it seems okay. But lo and behold, pag sinubmit mo yan sa tax accountant, sabihin ng accountant, bakit dito may undeposited funds? What is this? What are these? And then the accountant would want to understand what that is. They would ask for the general ledger. And so the general ledger would show what the undeposited funds are, right? Because guys, the fact is undeposited funds need to be deposited. That's why you have here bank deposit. So any undeposited funds need to be deposited, right? It has to be deposited. And we will go in another topic in QuickBooks Online because this will be covered. I'm just covering this in advance. Also because this is really, really important. Again, this is a quirkiness of QuickBooks Online that a lot of bookkeepers make a mistake on. Okay, and I don't want you to make that same mistake, especially if you're going to be working with me, because these are one of the things that I look at when I look at the balance sheet, right? And if I see undeposited funds, mind you guys, I know you don't know QuickBooks Online, right? So this is the quirkiness of QuickBooks Online. And you have to be very, very careful with this. And again, I will emphasize this as we go along. Now, why did I have to spend time on this? Is because this relates to the topic here. The sales transactions, the cash receipts, the credit purchases, the cash disbursements. These are manual. These are manual transactions or manual maintenance of books. And there are equivalents of this journal in QuickBooks Online. So again, sales transactions is your invoice. Cash receipts is sales receipts. Credit purchases is your bills. Cash disbursements is your expense. Copy? Make sense?
Copy po.
All right, perfect. Aya, you have got something to say?
I have a question, Chris, in QBO. With regards to receive payment, is there what's this? A notification what's in the QBO, is there a notification that if the customer will made a payment, or the client will just send us a file that showing that this specific customer made a payment of the invoice?
All right, very good question, Aya. I like your question because you're now picturing yourself as a bookkeeper, right? So your point of view is like, how do I know if a customer is making a payment, right? Good question. So if you're a bookkeeper, again, you would most likely have access to the client communication, right? Because that's why most bookkeepers are called virtual assistant bookkeeper, right? Because if you are an assistant to the businessman, you will have access to the calendar, right? So you will be communicating with the client, with the customer of your client, right? So you will be sending invoice, and then you will be reminding that customer about payments, and then when that customer makes that payment, you receive that payment into QuickBooks. So the source would be the communication with the client through email most of the time, right? Most of the time. And that I also want to go back to what I said before, that the reason why I would want you to encourage posting, sharing our posts, and so that we can get more people to come, because there's a lot of virtual assistants out there who would want to know bookkeeping, right? Because if you're a virtual assistant who know bookkeeping, you can greatly help your client. You can even get to a point where you can request for a raise in terms of rate, because you are no longer just a virtual assistant. You are a bookkeeper for the client. And remember, you're a virtual assistant because that client has a business. You know what I mean? You would not be a virtual assistant to someone who's employed, right? If I'm a nurse in the US, why would I need a virtual assistant? I'm employed, right? But if I'm someone who owns a business, I would need virtual assistant. Why? Because I would need someone to manage my communicate my email. I would need someone to maybe promote my business and social media. I need someone to be coordinating with my customers, right? So that's the typical task of a virtual assistant. Now, if you're a virtual assistant, so no bookkeeping, right? You are gonna be so expensive. Especially if you're a virtual assistant slash bookkeeper slash tax preparer. Imagine how much you're gonna be able to charge your customer, right? Or your client, because you have so much value, right? That is why I would want to get to the virtual assistant community, because bookkeeping and tax is gonna make them very, very expensive. You know what I'm saying? So now, if you're a virtual assistant, again, you're managing your clients' emails. So you will see there, you will be the one sending the invoice through QuickBooks. You will also be sending reminders for payments. Although QuickBooks automatically sends reminders, and then when payments are received, you are recording that into QuickBooks. So imagine out there, if you're putting out your resume and you put there virtual assistant, you know how to manage calendar, you know how to do social media management, and you know how to do QuickBooks Online. Oh my God, if I'm a businessman and I know you know how to do QuickBooks, I would be so happy to get you as my virtual assistant, because you'll be all in one, right? You are already managing my business. You're also my bookkeeper at the same time, right? Again, this is really, really a good opportunity for you to really provide value to your client. Because again, if you're already assisting someone in his business on the administrative side, and then you can provide assistance also on the financial side, you are a powerful virtual assistant, or assistant, not even virtual. You are a powerful assistant because you can operate his books. You are a very reliable partner in business, right? Because like if I'm a businessman, I would say, Chris, have you checked if my customer from say Texas, this company has already paid his invoices? And you can tell me right away, oh, based on QuickBooks, I have not received payment yet. They're 5 days overdue. What do you want me to do? And then as a businessman, I would say, can you call them, send them a reminder, right? That's the level of confidence the business owner would have with you as a partner in business. You get what I'm saying? And you see the value, right? I know, Aya, you asked about the question on how do you know if the client makes payment? And that's my answer. If you have been given access to the client's email, you will see it there. And sometimes if you are not the virtual assistant, you are only doing bookkeeping for the client will just forward to you an email, right? So the client would say, hi, Aya, this payment, this client sent his payment. These are the details. Can you please make sure that this is recorded in QuickBooks? That's how you get to know. Make sense, Aya? Did I answer your question? I know it was pretty long, but was I able to answer your question?
Yes, Chris. Thank you.
All right, great. And so with that, we're already 3 minutes past, no, 3 minutes before 9. Did these things make sense to you guys? Do you now see the value of how it is manually and how it is electronically with the use of QuickBooks as a software? It makes our life easy, right? It makes our life easy. Invoicing is just, a matter of hitting the right buttons, filling out the templates, or, filling out the drop downs. You don't have to do journal entries, but you still need to know why, right? Again, because this is the how and the why at the same time. You will have more appreciation of what you do and what happens in the background. And this is what makes you competent, right? If someone asks you, you can explain. Or if something happens, you can check your own mistake, right? And I would want you to have that capability, right? You get what I'm saying? So I hope you're seeing that value, and you want to continue with this journey, because mind you, I'm really giving my best to be the best teacher out here in bookkeeping and QBO, because in the very near future, I'm going to be hiring bookkeepers myself, right? And I would only hire someone who's gone through my course, right? Because if you've gone through my course, I know you know. You know what I'm saying? So this is why I'm giving it my best to train you the best way I could, right? And if you're also giving it your best, you're learning the best way that you could, we may be able to work together in the future. If not, I can recommend you to someone who may need a bookkeeper, right? Making sense? Grabe no, ang haba ng sinabi ko. Parang
Yes
ng
po. Thank you po.
I haven't finished my coffee yet, but I hope that made sense. And
Yes,
if
making
again,
a lot of sense.
if it appears to be too much for you tonight because we've gone through the woods, right? We went through the woods, but if that was the case, you can always replay. You can always do watch the recorded session in YouTube. That would add hours to our to our content. I get so excited when I look at the YouTube analytics. We are now about 2,000 hours views. That's amazing, guys. We've only managed to we've only been uploading contents in YouTube for a little over a month, but we've got really good numbers showing. And you know what? I've been thinking maybe I'm not asking payments from you, but maybe when YouTube gets monetized because of you, maybe that's how Borderless can earn money, right? Or can be sustainable because now we can afford to pay more people to make the community even bigger, right? So I just realized because I didn't plan on doing this, like uploading in YouTube. I didn't know that. I didn't plan that when we had this, but things are falling into places, right? So if you feel like this is adding value to you, what I would like for you to do is to watch the YouTube, share it to as many friends as possible. In that way, you will make Borderless Accountant available to more people, more potential clients, and also you will add, you may potentially add to a revenue making machine for Borderless Accountant, and that could be your way of paying it forward, right? I saw someone's hand raised earlier. Someone's hand raised earlier. Tama ba yung grammar ko? Was it Joel? Did you raise your hand? I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
wasn't really paying
Yes.
attention to the screen. Yes,
Yes,
go ahead.
Chris. Just a quick share. I think going back to the how do we know if the client has paid? Aside from the email that you mentioned to tell
Mhm.
you if someone has paid, the bank account also of the your client is also connected to QBO, and that bank account is sending bank feeds or bank transactions straight to QBO, and that will tell you also if someone has paid his invoice. That's it.
Right. Perfect. Thank you, Joel. I really like your input there. Yes, one way that we can look at payments from customers is a bank statements, right? But we'll get there. We'll get that into more details once we get to bank reconciliation, right? Because that's where we will account for the activities that's in the bank records of the client as well as in the bank feeds in QuickBooks. But thank you for pointing that out, Joel. One way that you can see payments from customers are from the bank statements, right? And it could be Zelle. There's a lot of payment platforms in the US, which we will tackle as we go along. Okay. But thank you for pointing that out. So 902, again, I would just want to make emphasis. If we are in TikTok, we are in Facebook, we are in YouTube. The way that you can pay forward for Borderless Accountant is, sharing all this so that if we get monetized, we can, provide more contents, right? Because now I can afford more people to work for Borderless Accountant to create contents, right? Not so much for me because again, I'm earning already very well in the company that I employed with. But if we are going to do it, really really big, the way that it can sustain is that if it pays for itself. You know what I mean? And one way that we can see that it can be done is through monetization. And I'm not saying it is it can be done, or I don't know, because we haven't even really applied for it, right? But the numbers look promising that we may be able to get to that point. But of course, that would be possible if you guys are able to contribute by sharing. Yeah, I will give you the time, Emmanuel, to share, and Jessica as well. And after Jessica, we are gonna close tonight's session, okay? But we'll hear from Emmanuel. Go ahead.
Hello, good evening po.
Yes, Bob.
Ask ko lang po, pag nagawa po ng invoice, automatic na po ba yung tax na papasok?
Sorry, we're hearing feedback, Emmanuel. Can you say the question again? Or if it's feedback from you, you can type the question in the chat box. And then Jessica, don't put your hand down. I'll call you a little shortly.
Hello,
Uh, yes, go ahead, Emmanuel.
Pag yung nag-input po ng invoice, may nakikita po kasi ako kaninang tax. Ano po, fix na po ba siya or kailangan baguhin pa?
All right, good question. So, tax you can always amend, right? Or you can always modify, right? Because it depends kasi kung saang tax jurisdiction din na belong yung taxpayer. May mga states na walang sales tax, may mga states na mayroong sales tax, right? So, it depends on the business and the location of your client. So, that can always be modified within QuickBooks. Did I answer your question, Emmanuel?
So, pag yung QuickBooks accounts po is nasa US siya, automatic US based na po yung tax niya. Nag-auto na po siya.
Hindi siya automatic. You will have to set it up.
Okay po.
Yes, there is a account setting that you can navigate so that you can trigger a sales tax and what percentage you would want to add on to the invoice. Okay, so bottom line, the answer to your question, Emmanuel, is it's not automatic. You will have to set it up in the settings. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Jessica, you want to say something?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah.
Yes, Bob.
Actually, it's not related to QBO because earlier, right, you informed me that I can send my updated resume on support. So just to check, are you the only one who has access to that email address?
Good question, Jessica. My team, there's Kelly, there's I have several on the team right now. Maybe 5 or 6 people have access to the email. If you meant to just send that to me, send it to my personal email, which is chris.mylastname@gmail.com. I only me have access to that email.
Yes,
Okay?
that's right. I have an email because I have an email sa'yo po.
Okay, Jessica. Yeah, I remember your name. I will get back to you as soon as I become available today. Okay?
Yeah,
No,
it's okay.
I will
Just take
get
your
back to you.
time.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Jessica.
you.
No worries. And I believe there was someone who raised her hand. Was it Evelyn? I'm sorry. We can still entertain you. I still have time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Good evening, sir. I just want to ask, in QuickBooks or in US, is there some place where we enter also the discounts? Is it in the invoice or in the receipt?
Good
The
question.
discounts, like
Yeah,
senior discounts and PWD discounts.
good question. Yes, you can also set it up along with same with the sales tax. That's something that you can also do in QuickBooks. So the answer to your question, Evelyn, is yes, you can do that in QuickBooks.
I want to know, is it in the invoicing or in the receiving?
You can either do it in the invoice or you can do it upon receiving the payments, right?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And Emmanuel has a follow-up question. We're co-host, maybe. Yes, go ahead.
Coach, possible po ba na mag-manual input tayo sa bank page? Kuwari nagpadala na si client ng bank page. Tapos meron siyang isang transaction na pwedeng inutos sa akin na i-input manually. Gagawin ko ba siya? Or pwede ba siya?
If you're question is, pwede ka bang mag manual input ng bank feeds? Yes. You can import in QuickBooks. If there are several transactions that you would wanna
wala siya sa sa bank, wala siyang bank feeds. Kumbaga, sinabi niya lang. Input mo lang to,
Yes.
walang
you
resibo.
can record that as a journal entry, and then you can attach his instruction in the email as a memo or as an attachment. Yeah, it's possible.
Oh, thank you.
Sure, no problem. I know we're getting into the woods, guys. This was just an overview. There will be more of it as we go along in QuickBooks, like managing accounts, managing receivables, assets, and whatnot. It's part of the QBO lessons, right, that we are covering. What we're just doing today was the special journal and the general journal and how that works in the context of a QBO. Okay, and we'll have more as we go along. So it's 10 minutes past the hour of 9. We'll continue tomorrow, not tomorrow, because tomorrow's Friday. We're doing the TBSA thing. We'll see you guys again on Saturday.